There you are, Cathy. Welcome to Love and Money Secrets TV.
It's great.
Great. Okay, so we can hear you.
Hey, it all worked out.
It all worked out. Well, I'm so happy and excited to see you, to meet you, and to be able to share with everyone your amazing story. And so before we dive in deep, why don't you tell us a little bit about, where were you born? Where did you grow up? Do you come from a family of one child or 10?
Real quick. My parents tried for 11 years to conceive, and then when that didn't work in 1959, they adopted me. So I grew up knowing that I was adopted. And interesting that you would ask this right away, because it does sort of play into where I am now with the stem cell activation and all. When I learned about my biological family, I learned that there were early deaths and a lot of horrific autoimmune diseases in my medical history. So when I got a little bit older, I set on a mission to prevent as best I could, to learn as much as possible, and ideally prevent that from happening to me.
Wow. So that's very interesting. That becomes, a critical piece of information when you're born from your parents' heart instead of from, your mother's womb, because they've adopted you into their family. There are some dynamics there that you have missing pieces of information.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you go about, so how did that unfold where it, I'm sure as a child and as a young individual, teenager, even in your 20s, you probably didn't think about it much, but maybe at some point along the way you got on your register. So how did that?
I thought about it all the time, and for a lot of adopted people, it sort of permeates your existence. It's at a cellular level of who you are. So, but when I was 18, I did, I had been curious all along, and I did the trace, the birth parent trace. At the time they had, very simple. They sent me the information, and I learned that my biological mother had already passed. She was 37 and passed from Lou Gehrig's disease.
Oh,
so,
wow.
And by the way, I had to be 21. They changed it to 18 a few years after, but I had to wait till 21. So at that age, learning about other relatives in my family medical history, I learned some, my biological father had MS. He had just been diagnosed. And it turns out that his father had passed away from MS by 41. And so, again, that became a huge factor. I think it sparked, I always liked science. I was the 9-year-old who all my friends wanted the Barbie playhouse or something, and I wanted a science lab. But it sparked an enthusiasm and kind of a burning desire to learn as much as I could about whatever autoimmune disease was. I didn't know. And so here we are. Here we sit together.
So you had a burning desire to learn about science and autoimmune diseases and so forth. And it was something that obviously was in your DNA. It's very rare for men to have MS. So it's interesting that you said that your mom died of Lou Gehrig's at 37. Your father was 41, you said, when he died of MS?
My paternal grandfather, my biological father, my birth father, lived to be 72. But by I'm 63, and by the time he was my age,
gosh, you look amazing.
We got the technology. There's one right there today. By the time my birth father was my age that I am now, he was completely bedridden, couldn't speak. So, I wanted to be in control as much as possible. I didn't want to turn control over my health to some other entity. And I had, as people do, I had some, maybe, let's say, negative experiences with medical doctors in my life. So it gave me even more of a desire to learn what I could learn and not be dependent on that.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. So this, tell our viewers a little bit about your background in terms of what it is that you do and what circumstances We already know that you had a proclivity and an attraction to learning more about the sciences. So moving forward, what happened in your life circumstance that brought you to the point where you came and you had this encounter where you learned about this thing, organic nanotechnology that is used in stem cell patches? How did that whole thing unfold for you?
My good friend Annie, we both are active in the same discipline of skydiving called canopy formation. And Annie knew that I had been not greatly injured. I'd been really injured in 2017. She and I were the only two women, maybe dumb enough or brave enough to participate in a night world record attempt. And she was there when the thing happened to me and I got flung into the earth. Nobody moved towards me because they all thought I was dead. So nobody was rushing in my direction.
Oh my gosh.
So Annie was one of those people who had been there to witness that. Yeah. And so when she was visiting me last year here in Vegas, she asked me, hey, what do you know about stem cells? Well, she knew that I had gone in 2018. I had been so injured from that accident that I had gone to Ukraine and had stem cell transplants. What's for $20,000? There you go. It was great for 4 months, and then it was like nothing had ever happened. Can you imagine? How do you think that felt?
That must have felt really miserable, because to make that kind of investment, and you said you went to Europe for the stem cell.
Yes. Yeah. So I thought it was, I was hurting. I was really hurting. In fact, a piece of that puzzle was that for 33 years, I had had 3 different sets of breast implants. And I didn't know that a lot of the symptoms that I thought were autoimmune, having to do with my family medical history, but a lot of those symptoms were actually caused by breast implants, as it's a foreign object in the body. So this compound of, I thought I was dying, Billy, and I really thought I was dying. And I didn't tell my husband things that, I was ordering online on my phone, something standing in the kitchen, and I couldn't remember my home address to input it. And quietly in my head, I'm thinking, well, if I go outside, I know the address is on the front of our house. I mean, that's terrifying.
That's going to be very unnerving when in the moment that you realize that you can't recall.
And this had been progressively worsening over the previous 6 or 8 years. So I thought I was dying, and then I got hurled into the planet and I got really injured. So I got these stem cell transplants. Yeah. And 4 months later, it was like nothing. So when my friend Annie was at my house visiting and she asked me, what do you know about stem cells? She told me later, she says, I was a little intimidated to ask you because I know what you'd been through.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I agreed to give them a try. And to be honest, I really thought I was just humoring a beloved friend. Because how could this silly little...
How could it work?
Right? Because how's that even possible? So sure. And God bless Annie. She took a look at I'm looking down at him because he's sleeping below my desk here. But she took a look at my Maine Coon cat, who at the time was almost 18. And, we probably were close to putting him down. We knew the time was coming. He was almost 18. So she said, you can take your leftover, and instead of throwing your patch away at the end of the day, the next day you can just stick it on Sam. And again, I was humoring my friend.
You didn't think it would make a difference, did you?
Completely silly. I've been asked before, Lillian, well, what were your expectations when you first started this? Like, my expectation was I was putting on a Band-Aid.
So nothing's going to happen.
I had no expectation. I thought this was incredibly silly. And I'm so thankful. Annie says, sometimes when we want to, because we get very excited because when something is miraculous,
Mm-hmm.
The $20,000 I spent a few years back was miraculous for a teeny bit of time. Now I've got this super affordable, simplistic looking technology that literally is creating miracles. I get very excited. But Annie says, you know, you don't want to tell people too much because you rob them of self-discovery.
Oh, that's an interesting take.
If she would have, if she would have listed off all of the testimonial type of things that over the last 10 months that I've availed myself of, if she would have told me a tiny percentage of that, I would have laughed and just had to leave the house from laughing too hard.
Because you wouldn't have, you would have thought that's just so far out that it's really
You
clearly.
gotta be kidding me. You're off your rocker. I would have laughed. But here we are, and Sammy's almost 19. Actually, he just turned 19.
19 years old.
Yeah, I saw him. My husband said, yeah, did you see him the other day outside in the backyard? He ran.
Oh my gosh.
So leftovers on the pets. He hasn't run, you know, when my brother came to visit in 2019, I think how long ago that was for a cat. And I remember my brother saying, you know, Cathy, you're going to need to think about putting him down coming up pretty soon. His arthritis is, he can hardly walk. And, you know, you see the animal every day, so you don't really think of it on those terms. And now he's running.
Can you bring him on? Is he within your reach that you can bring him on camera?
He is, stand by. He's,
Yeah.
come here, buddy. Come here. There's Sam from his nap.
He definitely does not look 19. Whoa.
No, his fur is completely regenerated back. So he started wearing, we call it the recycles. He started wearing those, maybe
Yeah.
middle of December. And when my mother-in-law came to visit us in May, I wish I had recorded her reaction when she walked in. She was sort of flabbergasted. She goes, is that the same cat? Is that Sam?
Oh my gosh. That's
He just looks, I mean, his fur is completely regenerated. I wouldn't be handling him. See how I'm handling him? I wouldn't
like a young cat.
I wouldn't have done that a year ago because you would have been afraid he would break.
So he's 19?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He was born in early October 2003.
That's outrageous. So that's from your after you used your stem cell patches for 12 hours, then the next day you just patched his collar. Where did you put it on him?
Yes, and it's funny because you hold up that strip of patches. That's what mine looked like too, like a little bunch of, like a tall snowman. Originally, when Annie recommended that I put my used patches on Sam, which I thought was even sillier than putting it on myself.
You're like, really?
Yeah, okay, sure.
Used.
Sure, just because you're staying at my house.
I'm gonna humor you.
So I took, he's just so fluffy now, it's crazy. So it's all over me. I took packing tape, just a stupid piece of packing tape, and taped it across his shoulders because he was so infirmed. He had dementia. So he had dementia so bad, he could no longer find the dog door to get outside. So we had put a litter box, and then he'd be 2/3 of the way to the litter box and stand there and just kind of look around like, well, what was I doing again? So once he started having noticeable improvement, literally within under 3 weeks, I've got videos of me crying, taking picture or video of him playing with a toy because it was like his dementia had just dissolved.
So with a cat, how could you tell that your cat had dementia, and how were you able to distinguish?
That's a good question.
That's I've never heard of a of a cat having dementia.
Behaviors, they cease. He stopped grooming himself. After they eat, they do their little thing with the paw and wash their face. We had forgotten that he used to do all those things because it had been so long since he did them that, into the end of December and into January, when we started to see him exhibiting these behaviors again, my husband and I go, hey, he just went outside and scratched at the palm tree. Like, he hasn't done that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Get halfway across a room and just sort of stop and in a, like an old man, just sort of rocking back and forth, like, where was I going again?
That's Interesting. So you could see how he was lost.
Indeed. And his gait, most people who know cats know that when your cat's going to die, they go hide behind a sofa or something, and they want to be alone, and then they expire. So he had been patched for maybe 3 weeks with leftovers, and I couldn't find him one day. And I was scared because here we go, where's he going to be? Cold and all over the house. And turns out he was up 2 flights of stairs under the middle of our king size bed, like the Eastern King, the wider one, in the center where he used to hunker down and hide when he was a young guy. And he was flexible, agile enough to get there. So that's why we call this the Crybaby Club, is because these miracles that we're experiencing every day, or you're hearing about somebody's miracles every day. I haven't cried like this in 10 years as I have, or for bad reasons, as I have for joy in the last 10 months.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible, because your pet, you're expecting, anytime soon, as you're starting to see all these symptoms, the onset of all this, and it's, a slow withering away of your beloved, family member, which is a pet. And you're like, oh, bracing yourself every day when you leave and you come back, you don't know what you're going to find, to all of a sudden you have this completely rejuvenated cat. It's like it's pulling out the ninth life, but you were the one responsible because you patched your cat with your leftover used stem cell patches. And that was enough to literally bring her back to life and to reset and restore her body.
Yeah, he's a boy, but yes.
Oh boy! Oh my gosh!
I know that he's very delicate. I know he's still only about 8 pounds. I was weighing him a lot. I've got a good scale, and I was weighing him to see, because we're using the bundle of the two different stem cell activation patches, because the scientific tests have proven that it benefits bone density. So I figured he could use that. He has barely gained any weight, but it's obvious when I'm holding him that his bone structure feels more sturdy, but his body fat, just the adipose, whatever, he feels like a much younger cat.
So let's talk about what patches. I'm going to share a picture. We're going to talk about both, and we're going to, what's your cat's name?
Sam.
Samurai. Sam what?
Like samurai warrior.
Samurai. Oh, I love that. Samurai. So let's talk about both the patches that you wore. And then of course, after you're done using your patches, then you're recycling them and giving the benefit to your cat, which is you basically saved your cat's life.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we won't know till when we know how many extra years you gave that cat, but Sam probably would not have seen maybe the end of this year. That's great that he was going.
A year ago, I would have bet you that by today's date, he would definitely not be with us. And in fact, one of my friends from our Thursday church group who met Sam, he saw him a year ago. And then they were over at the house. She's been patching and she's getting great results. They were over at the house and she said, okay, girl, I got to be honest with you. When I first saw Sammy last year, when her husband and her were driving home, she turns to her husband and says, they need to have the decency to put that animal down.
Oh, well,
Which is a great testimonial. She says, I didn't want to tell you that. I said, no, you don't understand what an awesome testimonial that is, because that's coming from an outside source who's seen him 2 times. And the first time he looked like he should
be put down. He was, goner.
What is happening? That's very cool. So yes, and you and I both are wearing this today.
X39 I have right here in front.
That's for me today. This is glutathione. And remember when I said I had 3 sets of breast implants over 33 years, and the toxicity.
3 sets of breast implants. Okay, so that's significant because some women out there have had breast implants, and we didn't know then what we now know. But so tell us a bit about that story.
Well, so I'm wearing glutathione maybe a couple times a week as a higher level detox, because I know that there's still a lot of chemicals in the body from having. People don't understand that the shell of the implant is made from, well, let's just call it like a nanometal. So when you do a hair test, when you have breast implants and you pull out some hairs, you send it in a little thing through Amazon, it comes in with just ridiculous amounts of heavy metals. Well, that makes sense. That is why my memory was so bad that I thought I had dementia. I thought I was dying. It makes sense why a person would have a lot of other, skin problems or ringing ears. And there is a page, there's a group on Facebook, Healing Breast Implant Illness by Nicole. I hope I'm saying that right. There were 68,000 women on that private group when I joined it in 2019. I just looked at it yesterday, 170,000. So it's just a few, and it's a private group. Women are posting private pictures, befores and afters, and it's, talk about miraculous. So, but for me, I know that this heavy metal, plus, I had amalgam fillings as a child and all this. So let's get the metals out. And within 30 minutes of placing a glutathione patch, I can put it below the belly button, but I like to put it here because I figure that's where the concentration of poisons was located. Within 30 minutes, my tongue is coated white. It's like the body's giving you crystal clear signals that detox is happening.
It's coming. Yeah, because people don't realize, I always tell people, your skin is your third kidney. It's your largest organ in the body is the skin. It's your third kidney. And it's, we detox through perspiration, urination, and defecation. Truth is, we also detox a little bit through our breath. We do expel as we exhale. We inhale toxins and we inhale water, and we exhale water and we exhale toxins as well. But the large percentage of it is through your skin. And so your tongue is a very viscous organ, very vascular organ. So that's very telling. That's showing you the level of toxicity. For it to come out in the tongue, that means that you have heavy toxins. So what did you think when you first, you're realizing that's as a result of the glutathione, right?
I did. Well, when I first started wearing X39 in the beginning,
I'm going to share the picture of your pictures of in January, March, June, and July, so that
isn't that funny? Yeah,
our viewers can see. Okay, go ahead.
So, and I was so happy to get my health back so dramatically after having the implants removed, that leftover effect on my décolleté skin was just going to be a no big deal, because I could think again, I could function, and I thought I was dying before. So when I first started wearing X39, maybe within about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, I had noticed the coated white tongue.
Wow.
So, I like to brush my teeth. So that was no big deal. But now I've been wearing that particular patch every day since the 9th of December. So I needed to kick it up a notch a little bit now and again. So I'll do that with glutathione.
That's incredible. So let's talk about the patch regimen that you were on when you first started in January. I just dropped asleep. When you started in January, what was the first, because some people start with a 4 patch system, some start with a protocol of 8 patches. Some people just start with X39. When you started, what did you start with?
I started, actually, I took the picture in January, but I started patching on the 9th of December. And apparently someday in January, I thought, maybe I should take a picture of this. Again, no expectations. I didn't think it would be dramatically improved as it is. So I had already had a month I started X39, and I know that we like to say that half the people notice results in 3 to 6 weeks, the other half in 3 to 6 months. But I was one of those weirdos that noticed results on the 3rd day. Because Lillian, I had re-injured my shoulder, which I had surgery on 10 years earlier.
Oh my gosh.
last summer. And when Annie said, "What do you know about stem cells?" I was being, I was agreeing with my friend, and I was going to wear this silly Band-Aid, but I was still being belligerent because I didn't want to put it at the back of my neck. She goes, "Well, you said you hurt your shoulder. Let's take it off your shoulder."
Let's fix it. Yeah, let's help your body.
Right? That girl. I mean, just she's got the courage to just put it out there because she cares. She just loves so much. So fine. So I stuck it on my shoulder, and on the third day, she was not at the house, and I'm calling up to my husband saying, something's going on. My pain is so reduced. And he said, you haven't been able to sleep since September. What do you mean? So we both got on the computers, looked things up, and went, gosh, this is real. This is a science. I love science. This is a science-based company, and it's not even brand new. How did I not know about this? So I started with X39. And as soon as X49 was available around Christmas, I added that. I regret that I did not go and get a DEXA scan done right away. I procrastinated on that, and I finally had one in March. So I was 62 and a half, it says on the paper, in March.
What type of scan? I didn't hear really clearly what you said.
DEXA scan, where you lie on the flat device, and it scans over the entire body and breaks down section by section your bone density and your muscle mass and your body fat, your entire body. So it's amazing. You walk away with a 4-page, not the kind that you need a requisition from the doctor, because those are actually crappy when it comes to the average person being able to read them. This is nicer. It's a full body image, a couple of them. So had I had one in the beginning, I would have more of what I like to have, quantitative data to prove that the 3949 combo was the reason why. Let me see, December, January, February, March. So after 3.5 months with those patches at 62 and a half, and I'm not I'm a healthy person, but my visceral fat, that's the fat in and among your abdominal organs, for those who don't know what that is. The average person in their 20s has some pounds of that. The average person in their 60s is going to have 5 or 6 pounds of that. And I had 0.68 of 1 pound.
Wow. So 5/8 of a pound. Whoa.
Right. So I was pretty floored that, I was also mad at myself for not getting the data in advance.
Well, you didn't know that you were going to have such, you put it on thinking it's a Band-Aid. It's nothing's going to happen.
By that time, though, by the time that I kept saying, I really should go do that. I really should go do that. I really should go do that. And then so I finally did, because that's part of, going all the way back to my early 20s and beginning to devour every bit of information I could on how autoimmunity works, different functions and systems of the body, which became a passion and a career in coaching. And how did I not know about these stem cell patches, and why wouldn't a person want to get the data? I like to be able to look and see the improvements, right? Look at my before and after pictures. I tell people all the time, take more before pictures than you think you're going to need.
Yeah, it's important to document things in advance. And I try and tell people to make sure you take pictures. And the people that I start on the stem cell patch therapy, I have them give me updates. I'm so sorry. I forgot to set my ringer down. I tell them, when you give me updates, it's like, when we talk, let's, I'd love to get a text message from you about what we discussed, tell me about some of these things, and then also send me a video, because moving forward, people oftentimes forget how bad were. And there are things that, you're looking at the bigger things, and some of the smaller things, which are smaller maybe to you, are not so small for someone else. And so you're like, oh yeah, I totally forgot I had that. Like, point in case, Bob Campbell, a mutual friend of ours,
Yes.
he had 14 years battling with really bad skin cancer. He had white scabs all over his face, his arms, his legs. And at the same time, he also had prostate cancer. And he had terrible plantar fasciitis. His feet were so bad that since 1973, I'm like, that's basically my whole life.
Yeah.
From 1973 until a year ago, he basically was in horrible pain because the plantar fasciitis was so bad. His feet couldn't even touch his mattress when he was sleeping. He had to hang them on the side of his bed. So with those three conditions alone, bear in mind, skin cancer is all over his body. So it was very distracting, as you can imagine. Other things like a tooth abscess, which would drive any of us absolutely, wildly insane because it's so painful to have a tooth abscess. He forgot about that. And so then one of his friends said, well, hey, remember you also had, when you started on the patches, you had a really bad tooth abscess and
Yeah.
you're hemming and hawing about going to the doctors and so forth. And remember, that was one of the first things that got cleared up. And he's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It's true. It's true. And that's why I like the, there's a health tracker that we can give out to people. But
Mhm.
I found that there were so many things for me. I was keeping a notebook because the health tracker didn't list enough because of the breast implants. Starting back, 7 or more years ago, I had really bad neuropathy in my feet. It wasn't a pain sensation. It was like a weird, almost electric shock, or if your feet were in ice water for 5 minutes and then you got out, kind of that, very irritating and uncomfortable. So here in Las Vegas, it would be, July, August, I'm outside, it's 109 degrees outside, and I'm wearing 3 or 4 pair of socks so that I can mute the signal of the air off of my feet, unless I was in the pool. Yeah, it's super weird. You're in your swimsuit and 3 pair of socks. So having my implants removed significantly improved that neuropathy. But that, again, I didn't, like you said, I didn't even remember about that. So it was somewhere in February. I had been patching for maybe not quite 2 months. And I like it warm because us middle-aged ladies, we don't necessarily like it too cold when we're sleeping. Husbands do. And the next morning, my husband said, I noticed that you went to bed without long sleeves, because just any of the air moving on my skin would just keep me awake. Without long sleeves last night, your arm was out over the covers, and you've been sleeping without socks for the last 2 nights. And I hadn't even realized it. And he said, and by the way, I'll let you in on a secret. I also bumped the temperature down a little bit cooler.
Oh my goodness. And you hadn't noticed.
Yeah. So you don't know if you don't write it down. So I always encourage people, make a list, because we're sitting here having a conversation about it. Let's write it down, because you'll forget, like Bob, like I did.
Yeah, I think it's human nature to forget some of the worst parts, or just remember a few like maybe the bigger things, and then everything else kind of fades in the back because you feel so much better that you don't want to go there again. But the truth is, you suffered and you struggled with these things for years. It wasn't something that for a week or two or a month or two of your life. No, if you had 3 different breast implants, that's over a trajectory of, I don't know what length of time it was, but it was probably at least a decade, I would imagine.
Well, so for 33 years total with the 3 sets of implants, and what I learned after I had them out. Thank God for my friend Melissa, who invited me to that private Facebook group, because she had hers removed and I knew about it, and she didn't say anything to me because she knows me well enough. So she just waited, and one day I got an invite to that group, and I'm accepting the invite because I love her, and I'm going, there's no way I'm getting, and I'm reading and I was riveted. I spent, no exaggeration, over the 2-day period, I spent about 15 hours pouring through that site, because I had thought I was dying. And now I'm learning there's one answer to all of these things. Lily and I've been in an ambulance. I've been brought to the emergency room thinking I was having a heart attack 4 total times, in your 30s, multiple small symptoms that you get so used to. that your brain starts to mute that out, or you won't be able to function.
It's a coping mechanism. Yeah.
It is, and it's the malady is known as BII, or breast implant illness. And what I've learned, and we're going forward talking about how these patches help you forget that you had certain problems. When you're so inundated with 20 seemingly small things, your brain is on high alert all the time. It's just firing, firing, firing.
Yeah, and your adrenaline's going, your cortisol levels are up, your C-reactive proteins are up, you're having some, brain fog. And when you're in that fight or flight response, it's like you're kind of wanting to run everywhere, trying to find something that's going to work, and at the same time not really being able to grasp anything, because you're out of sorts. You're in that fight or flight response, which is a very unnerving. It's also an energy that's very draining, to you, and to get centered is a very difficult thing to do in midst of that.
Positive, and you try to put on a good face for everyone, which is harder and harder. So when I did have the implants removed the correct way by a wonderful doctor here in Las Vegas, my cognitive function got so improved right away, within days. But as a little bit of time would pass, more improvement. And I thought I was as good as I was going to get at 62. I thought I was as good as I was going to get. And then I started wearing these patches every day. And my cognitive function, I've made jokes, it's almost scary, because we expect our certain faculties of bodily systems to wane as we get older. We expect that. So when I'm having, when I notice that my handwriting has improved, well, logically, that's because the signals between my brain and my hand are functioning at more youthful optimal levels. But the things that I'm remembering, that 63 years on the planet, there are a lot of files that have been deleted.
Well,
they're not.
The carnosine patch for neurocognition, but people don't think about your heart and your cardiovascular system being related to brain function, and it's acutely linked together. If you have any kind of heart problems, it's going to affect your brain, because the amount of oxygen flow and blood flow is going to be compromised, which means you don't have everything that you need for your brain to work properly. So the carnosine patch increases your neurocognition. So now, I'm sorry?
I love that patch. I like to wear it at the at my sacrum, at the base of my spine. I broke myself when I had that accidental meeting with Mother Earth back in 2017. I compression fracture of the lumbar spine. So I like to put my carnosine back there, but surely it is partly responsible for this increased cognitive. That's great.
That's amazing.
I like doing all these patches. Girl, how many do you wear?
So I wear 8 to 12 patches, which I know some people are probably thinking, what? That's a lot of patches. Well, if you were hit by a bus, just 3 blocks shy of finishing a 16-mile bike ride, you might want to optimize your body and get it reset and restored.
What did Bob say? You only get one body. Like, why are you going to wait and mess around with just this little patch or just this other little patch if you can afford them, or choose to afford them?
Yeah. So, and like if we show like the Dr. Wholesale Pack form, typically when you start on when you want, a pretty baseline protocol, in my opinion, is getting on the X39, getting on the X49, the glutathione, and then either the Eon or the carnosine. Really, you need the protocol of those 5 patches. That's like your solid foundation. And then from there, you can build for more specifics depending on the gravity of your circumstances, or on how optimized you want your body to be. And so so I take X39, X49, glutathione, Eon, carnosine. We've done videos and sessions here where we explain the different patches. I'm going to just share the screen here so you guys can kind of eyeball the bullet points to each one of the patches. But basically if you have 4 sleeves, 4 different types of patches, one sleeve has 30 days worth, it's a month supply of patches. That's basically 2 Starbucks a day. So if you're buying 2 Starbucks a day just because you love coffee, you can afford this because you can get X39. And I'll just let you guys read on your own here what X49 does. We talked about what it does for your neurocognition. It's also phenomenal for radiation poisoning relief and protection against 5G Wi-Fi radiation poisoning. And ooh, look at this, it reduces belly fat as well. A lot of athletes love this patch because it increases your lean muscle mass and your bone density. But we've got glutathione and then Eon. Glutathione, master antioxidant, and then Eon, master anti-inflammatory. We talked about reducing the cortisol and when you're in that fight or flight response. This patch not only reduces your inflammation, but it legitimately makes people feel happy.
Mhm.
I'll tell you the number of people that I put on this protocol, and 2-3 weeks later, they're like, Lillian, I am so happy. And it's not, I mean, the only thing that I've changed is that I've started on these patches, and I wake up and I'm happy, and I stay happy throughout the day. I'm going to bed happy. And now my boyfriend Dave is noticing. They're like, you've been happy for days. You've been happy for weeks now. You're like legitimately happy now. And she's like, yeah. And not just this one gal, Deb. I can't tell you, I've got Jenna the same way. I've got Al. I got so many people. For me to drop names here is pretty much irrelevant because you guys don't know them all. But
You want to share it with everybody?
want to share it with everyone is absolutely true.
Yes.
And it is phenomenal. And so for the price of, like I said, 2 Starbucks a day, $11 a day, you can basically get 4 patches. And if you want to really do yourself justice, I like putting people on the gold pack, because it says here 5 sleeves, but we can get them in our group. We've got 710 doctors. We can actually get you 8 different patches. That is like the cat's meow, because now you're really getting down to having a very comprehensive, specific protocol that's really going to make your body, it's instead of it taking 7 to 10 years for it to replace, normally it's a 7-year schedule to turn over all 56 trillion cells in your body. You're doing that in a year. What it takes normally 7 years to do. And then that's with stem cells that are almost non-existent, because 50% of them, if you're over 30, 50% of them have already gone dormant. If you're 60, almost 100% of them gone dormant. So just think of your copy machine. Everybody has a copier at home. And if you have that printer copier, you have your tricolor and your black copies. When the cartridges are brand new, you can't tell the difference between the original and the copy. But when you're at 70, 80, 90% that you've used up those cartridges, that black and white copy is a gray and white copy. Your color copy is a very faded version, very different from the original. There's no way it's anything close. The same thing's true with your stem cells. Your stem cells, when you only have 10, 20% left or less, you have very faded copies of your cells. So the reproduction of those cells aren't going to be as accurate and as crisp and as clean, which is why you have the aging process, why you have inflammatory disease, why you have chronic pain, chronic conditions, because the copies aren't so good. Now we get to quantum exponentially fast, replicate all of those cells, because you're turning them on. It's like, these are light switches.
I love that analogy.
It's true. That's how it works. And these stem cell patches, it doesn't have to be a long time. Like the moment you put the stem, I can prove it to somebody. If I had you here in person, or actually even remotely, I can do this with you. I can take the stem cell patch and I can test you as you are, what your strength is in the present time without any add-ons. And then I can take this one stem cell patch, I can just hold it up to your neck, or I can surrogate for you where I put it upon my neck, and I can muscle test you or sway test you. And now you're going to test, like, whoa, you have more strength. Instead of it being something that takes energy, your body's going to test and show that it's got more power. I do it with 2 patches, 3 patches, 4 patches or more. Again, I can verify that. You can do it with your cell phone. Dr. Harmon shared with us last night. You might want to watch that broadcast. He showed how I can show how X49 protects you from Wi-Fi radiation like this. You don't even have to patch the whole thing on. You just hold it on your governing vessel 14 or even on your heart. And without it, I can muscle test you or sway test you, and you can receive a phone call and you'll see that your energy, it drops. I can call your phone and now hold that stem cell patch up to you and now call you. And now you're strong. You don't even have it fully patched on just by your holding it up to your body, let alone if you actually patch it on. And so that the proof is in the pudding. You can't fake that. You can't feel I can't make you feel anything in your body. Your body is responding to the energy because you're all energy. All this does is reflect it back in a certain pattern to activate things depending on which patch it is. It has a different purpose. For example, this Eon patch is the master anti-inflammatory. We call it the happy patch because it reduces the factors that are contributing biochemically and neurochemically in your body that are created when you have stress, like cortisol, adrenaline, C-reactive proteins. It's going to balance them out. So now you have that brain balancing, that calming effect. Of course you're happy. So Cathy, tell us what happened when you started to realize, like, you know, we look at at ourselves every day in the mirror, so we don't necessarily notice the change because it's a gradual change to us because we're seeing ourselves all the time. But as you know, you have friends who haven't seen you for a week, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. At what point did you realize, I mean, were you going back and reviewing, let me look at my picture in January, how did that unfold?
Not so much. What I did notice, because I'm a person who pays attention to all the details, all the science. I noticed within the first few weeks, I remember telling my husband, I said, my skin feels like gravel, but I knew that that's because it was turning over rapidly.
And all the detox too.
Yeah, exfoliate, you're good. But that consistent exfoliation was revealing younger and younger skin. And then I started to notice, where's the crepiness? I'm in my 60s, and we laugh about it, but I was running to my husband, you know, several times a week with offering my forearm, feel my skin, feel my skin. Obviously, if something is creating a visible effect on the outside, a lot of other great things are happening on the inside. But I could tell just through that turnover, the cognitive function, my nails were growing better. When you mentioned Bob Campbell, you know, that's funny because when he talks about having the prostate cancer and how he couldn't urinate without some medication, and he says because of the patches now he can urinate like a 30-year-old. And I said, I've noticed that I guess similarly, I don't need to run to the restroom even half as many times in the day. And gradually, over 10 months now, I can honestly say I don't get up in the middle of the night at all, ever anymore. It didn't happen immediately, but it was gradually. And then you'd realize, gosh, I only got up in the middle of the night a couple of times this week. And then when it started to be never, I can't remember the last time I made it till 6:30 in the morning without having to get up and pee. Because middle-aged ladies, we do, right? You leave one restroom and you're on the lookout for another one when you're out in public. Where am I going to go? So
well, I think that's another significant factor that you're talking about, because it's not just middle-aged ladies. You know, the first time you have a baby,
well, yeah,
as you have a baby, and if I can't speak for those who did cesarean section because I didn't have any C-sections, but after you have that first baby, right after that baby's born, those muscles are not working because they've been stretched to allow the passage of that baby to come through. And it takes a while for those muscles to come back. And if you're fortunate enough that your doctor tells you to do Kegel exercises, and you actually, at first you try to do them and you can't do them because, you know, you just gave birth. But if you keep at it, you do regain, just like any other muscle, you do regain that back. But some women never regain that control of being able to not urinate. And so that becomes a big problem, especially if they have a second kid or a third kid or even a fourth kid. And so that's, you know, it affects the quality of your life if that's going on with you. So guess what? With these stem cell patches, whether it's from that circumstance or if it's from just becoming older and as the normal progression of life, some women who don't lose it then start to have those issues once they're, get older. Guess what? This is something that can reset and restore your body so that you don't have those issues of being able to basically having bladder control, because that has to do with the resiliency of not just your bladder, but also your urethra and the muscles that are all down there in your reproductive organs. So that's amazing that you also started to notice that, wait a minute, you're actually able to sleep through the night. You don't have to get up.
It's miraculous. It really is life-changing, because quality of sleep is important no matter what age. But as we get older, quality of sleep, immune function, those things are interrelated.
Yeah, they are fantastic. So in summary, you were on X39, X49, glutathione.
This morning, glutathione is a random thing, but X39, X49, most days I'm wearing the Aeon.
Mm-hmm.
Most days I'm wearing carnosine. I think the instructions say to not use that every single day.
You know what? I've seen that, but I've heard David Schmidt, the inventor of the stem cell patches, who originally created this for the Navy SEALs. I've heard him. He wears carnosine every day. Okay. He wears it on his right temple. I switched mine September 1st to wearing it on my right temple right here. So at 10 p.m. I just put it on every morning, and then I don't move it till 10 a.m. in the morning. And then he wears Alavita here because it's activating your pineal gland. And so I wear that on my pineal gland, and then carnosine here. And some people don't like it here because it gives you really like vivid dreams.
I was just going to say, yes.
I love those vivid dreams. I have no issue with that. So I'm cool with that. So yeah. So that's
Technicolor dreams so vivid that when you wake up, you feel like you've been adventuring all night long.
Well, and you have, and you remember it instead of you're going, I remember parts of it. You remember more of it. I don't know. I think it's fun. So
profound. I think, for the best way I can say how this feels for me, and everybody has their own take on it, but your technology, your phone, when your phone needs an upgrade, you know that if you plug your phone in when you go to bed, it's going to update itself. And even though it's the same actual device, when you wake up, everything's been upgraded. The whole system has been upgraded. And I feel like gradually that's what these patches are doing. So 39 and 49 every single day. Mm-hmm. Now it'll be every single day. I like that at my low back. The Aeon patch, most days I will wear energy enhancers, either on because they're non-transdermal, and I can put them on my tank top, because if I'm in and out of the pool, that particular location where I like to wear them, because with, again, having had breast implants and lung issues as a child growing up with smoking parents, that's where I like to wear them. But they don't stay on as well when I'm swimming several times a day. But they're non-transdermal, so I can put them on my shirt. It doesn't matter. SP6 complete. Let me tell you, when my husband's out of town, because he's gone about half time for work, and there's temptation in the cabinet or the cupboard, whatever, I've got an SP6 complete on my left leg, and that SP6 is actually the name of the acupuncture point where there's a placement for it, and curbs my appetite and food cravings better than anything I've ever used.
Yeah, please. I want to ask you about the Alavita. Do you use the Alavita Trio or just the Alavita patch?
All of it. When I first got started, and I'm looking through the website, and of course they have face product. Of course they do. And then after a few months, it dawned on me, well, it's got to be spectacular, because these patches are spectacular. I should probably try the face product. Amazing. I just love it. The texture of the Alavita day and night. It's like it belongs on your skin. It
soaks it up too. Yeah.
Yeah. The night cream, I just asked my husband last night. I said, hey, we're both I said, have you ever applied this during the day? And he said, why would I do that? I said, I don't know, because it's extra rich and you're outside. But if you do that and then you rub your skin 20 minutes later, it's you're exfoliating. It's like a natural exfoliant. So no wonder it makes us look even younger and tighter skin.
Yeah, and I'll clarify because I didn't try when I first started, I didn't get the skincare. I just got the patches. And so up until October 1st, I was only using the aloe vera patch. And then I decided to get, the trio. And then I noticed that it's like a day facial, it's a day cream nectar and an evening nectar, which is basically, it's just hydrating and feeding and soothing your skin. That's complementary, obviously, with the stem cell patches. And I got to tell you, my skin I just feel like my skin drinks it up and it just loves it. And It's not greasy, it's not thick. It's like the perfect consistency, and it just drinks it up. I'm going, wow, my face really is doing well with this. So we don't have too much time left here. We got to wrap this up. I have my next person ready here, but Cathy, I just want to thank you so incredibly very much for your sharing with us your story, your experience. Oh my gosh, Sam literally owes his life to you. The person who introduced you to this organic nanotechnology, you owe your life to them as well, as do I. Dr. Nirmala, who introduced me to this so that I could use it in my practice. So I just want to thank you, my friend and Jem. You are amazing, and it's incredible the things that you do in skydiving. It never ceases to amaze me that you could actually pull it off and do these formations in the daytime. When you told me yesterday that you had a nighttime formation, I thought that is so beyond next level that when I saw the picture, it almost didn't make sense. It was so spectacular to look at, which we showed at the beginning of the broadcast. But I just want to thank you for being yourself, for following your passion and taking that risk and trying these patches. You thought they were just these silly band-aids, that nothing was going to happen. And then everything happened for you. And now so many others, everything is happening for them. You've unlocked that potential so that we can all enjoy that. So thank you, my friend and Jem.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You're amazing. You're awesome. You're beautiful. You have a new fan, a new cheerleader behind you. Can't wait to see you in Nevada. And when you come out here to California, we'll have to get together too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Take care.